All right, let's get serious. We're talking Dave Smith. We're talking Trump indictments, or as I like to call them, indictments.
Experience.
Well, look, even like with this Trump thing, man, it's like I was saying, how so many people still believe the Russia collusion story, which was all made up, man. And you can go follow this whole thing. It was all
Steele
made up, and
dossier,
they knew it.
paid
They knew
for
what they
by
were doing.
Hillary.
There's that clip, by the way,
No
before any of this stuff.
repercussions.
This is before Donald Trump ever took office. Did you ever see the Chuck?
No repercussions. If I file a false police report, I'm in trouble. But someone by the name of Hillary, from what the information says, fabricated an entire FBI investigation into the highest office of the land, costing millions and millions of dollars. And it was all fabricated, based on fabricated information and lies. And then what was the FBI? Oh, and then the Hunter Biden laptop that was signed off by 50 three-letter agents, three-letter agency agent type people. There's a lot of collusion going on, and it's not between Russia and Trump. It's between three-letter agencies and government officials and the judicial branch of the U.S. government, aka the courts, and the FBI. Well, I already said three-letter agencies. Okay, let's get back to it.
Chuck Schumer, 6 Ways to Sunday.
You were telling me about it last night. You were saying we should watch it.
We should play this because and let me just preface it briefly to kind of set up what's so amazing about it. There are these occasional moments where, even like I said, the thing where Chris Murphy just happens to blurt out like, "Oh yeah, our policies overthrew Yanukovych," right? Like there are these moments where kind of like these rare moments of honesty from the kind of leaders of the regime.
Yeah.
And this one comes because Rachel Maddow asks him like an impromptu thing. And she says that. She leads that. Yeah. So, but this is just, and just so you know, this is Donald Trump has been elected, but he hasn't been, he's a president-elect here. So it's after the election, but he's not president yet. So this was about him tweeting something here.
But he's taking these shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do?
You know, this reminds me when that interviewer asked Elon Musk, "Hey, why do you speak freely? Why do you speak your mind when you know that it could harm your business?" And Elon said, "It reminds me of that quote in the Princess Bride: offer me money, offer me power, I don't care. If speaking my mind results in Twitter losing some profit, then so be it." This is the same situation. If you see evil, if you see corruption, you can either be scared and you can go the other way and say, "Oh, I don't want to confront anybody. I'll just go hide for the rest of my life because no one likes me and they want me to go away." Or you stand the fuck up and you say, "You know, I'm 80 years old. I've had a great life. What do you want to do to me, huh? Go ahead, because I'm coming." And there's a lot of support behind him. I want us to vote all the incumbents out. I think the whole government is the problem, not just the president.
If they were
I don't know, but from what I am told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them.
So, and what happened right before that is that Rachel Maddow goes, she goes, "All right, I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, but Donald Trump just tweeted this thing about the intelligence community. Any thoughts on that?" So it's not like he was prepared for this.
Right.
The most powerful senator in America, his initial gut reaction was like, "Well, dude, you're taking on the intelligence. I mean, you want to go up against the CIA? You think you're going to win that fight?
Yeah.
Like, they're going to get you." And this was already after they had already been, they were spying on.
Either nobody's paying attention or nobody gives a fuck. That the three-letter agencies have the power to shit on the power structure of the U.S. government. Our elected officials, guess who apparently is above them and can fuck with them? The three-letter agencies and the goddamn billionaires and the CEOs of billion-dollar companies that have all this money to throw at problems. As far as I know, the CIA doesn't have to worry about money anymore because they took their budget and they invested it in a fund that they now make money off of, so they're fucking rich. I mean, what do you want? It's money rules America. It's a fact.
On his campaign, they had already kind of begun framing him for this whole Russia thing, which was always nonsense. Now, it started with the Steele dossier and all that stuff, and then they were spying on Carter Page, who was like a pretty low-level advisor in Donald Trump's campaign, and the allegation was that the Russians had offered him a huge stake in like one of their biggest energy companies if he could get Donald Trump to remove all of the sanctions that we had at the time on Russia, which on the face of it made no sense because he's like a low-level advisor on the campaign. Now, he's not even in the administration.
Was this based on intercepted emails?
No, this was based off the Steele dossier, which was opposition research that Hillary Clinton had funded, where she hired this British spy to go like dig up dirt on Donald Trump. And they put together this whole dossier alleging that he was, he had been in bed with Russia for years. He was compromised. It was that the prostitutes were peeing on him and all this like crazy shit. And they all knew it was unverified. They all knew it was like, all of it, almost all of it was ended up being disproven. But so when they went to Carter, but just to understand, like the idea of trying to bribe a low-level advisor on a campaign to then somehow take over the administration once he got it'd be like on the level of if someone was like we're going to bribe the door guy at the mothership to make sure that the Joe Rogan Experience only talks about these subjects. And you're like, I mean, even though there's a loose connection between you and the guy who works at the mothership, the idea that he would ever then be able to come in and take over the show and control it just made no sense. But we now know that the CIA told the FBI that Carter Page was a good guy, that he was a CIA informant. Then they told the FBI, they're like, no, he's not a spy, he's one of ours. So just lay off. And then the FBI lied about that on the FISA application. And this was the only guy who went down for the frame job was this one FBI lawyer for
lying on the FISA application. I remember this, and then this is all coming back to me. This has been years now because we're talking, oh man, all this stuff was going on, I don't know, like at least 4 years ago. Middle of Trump's term, we're in the middle of Biden's-ish. Yeah, it's more than 4 years ago, or thereabouts. So yeah, this is all, like everybody wants to forget about it. Now Trump's the bad guy. But the truth is that this was all fabricated, and nobody's ever said that the people that are lying about trying to throw... You know how evil it is to try to incarcerate someone falsely? Even just a regular person, and you're trying to do this to the president because you don't like him, because you want to control the country? So one's just shitty. Like, I don't like Dale. I'm going to tell the police that he killed somebody. And then he gets arrested and goes to jail for the rest of his life. That's petty. That's personal. This is evil. You're trying to not just incarcerate the man, but you're trying to incarcerate him so that you have control over the country and you have no political opposition in a country that's supposed to have free and fair elections, and the popular candidate is supposed to win. And instead, in our country, our shithole communist country that we're turning it into, is we use the courts to remove political candidates that have a real high chance at winning from the competition.
Misrepresenting what the CIA said. So basically, they said that he was approached by Russians, and that he was approached by a group of Russians to see if he would turn and work for them. And the CIA were like, yes, he was. And he came right back to us and told us about it. And then when they were putting in the application for the FISA warrant, the FBI said he was approached by these Russians and the CIA confirmed it. So they said that the CIA confirmed that he was approached by these guys, but they left out the part that the CIA said, and he came right back to us and told us about it. So that one guy was the only guy who got charged.
Did he get...
Because it was no jail time, but he did get charged.
Carter Page got charged?
No, the FBI agent the FBI lawyer who lied on the application.
Oh, interesting.
Carter Page, they had 3 FISA court warrants on him. They spied on him all up and down. Never been charged with anything because he wasn't a spy.
Right.
And Donald Trump, even now, with all these charges, right? He's never been charged with treason. He's never been charged with inciting an insurrection. because they know they can't get him on those charges. So what they're getting him on is all these like novel legal theories. Well, it's not very clear that he violated the statute, but if we interpret it this way, we could make the argument for the first time ever that this was actually...
I've said this in other videos. There's no legal precedent for what is going on right now. There's none. And these aren't really even like clearly defined charges. Like he said, it's legal theory on new stuff that's never even been tried. And they're going to try to set the precedents and argue for certain interpretations. And it truly is up to, well, I hope there's going to be a jury. I pray there's going to be a jury. Because if there's not, if this is fully captured and the judge and the lawyers, it's just their decision, Trump's fucked. And not because he's guilty, just because they're going to ramrod it right up his, you know.
A violation of law.
They'll
it's
do
all
anything.
like they're grasping at straws.
Yep.
And it's very clearly like they've weaponized the legal system against this guy. It's not a coincidence that all of these indictments are coming down right now. Like, why was the January 6th?
Exactly. They waited. This is purely political. If this was legitimate, they would have charged him right after and gone after him right after. But you know what? Then it would have sorted itself out and he would have been free and clear, no double jeopardy, you can't charge me again, blah, blah, blah. Free and clear to run. They purposely waited. This is purely political. And if you believe these charges are legitimate, I mean, look into it. Maybe I'll do some digging on it and try to present some information. But I mean, look into it. If you're genuinely curious and you really think you're on the right side of this, then I suggest you at least look into it enough to know what the basics of the charges are, the basics of what's actually being levied against him. Because yeah, there's like 90 felony counts, but it's all really weird, obscure charges. None of it is the staple stuff that you want, which is election fraud and meddling, and inciting a riot, and taking sensitive information home. I don't even think that's a charge because he's protected under executive privilege, from my understanding. We'll see. This is going to be highly contentious, and this election cycle is going to be even messier and worse than 2020 was, and that was horrible.
Thing. Why would any of this be coming down right now?
Right.
All those other people in January 6th, they got charged and arrested immediately. It was determined by the powers that be, you know, with the corporate media, the deep state, all of the establishment, that he was unacceptable. And that's not new to Donald Trump. There were a lot of candidates who have been determined to be unacceptable. Ron Paul was unacceptable. Bernie Sanders was unacceptable. Tulsi Gabbard was unacceptable. And you saw like the machine be weaponized against all of them to keep them out. But Trump beat the machine.
Yeah.
Trump, the difference is Trump won. I mean, there's other differences, but the guy who they determined was not acceptable ended up winning. And part of what was so powerful about that is that it kind of destroyed the illusion of inevitability that I think progressives rely on. That, you know, like progressives will very confidently tell.
Yeah, so this was a closed system, right? You had to work your way up from the mailroom, and through that process, you got compromised and compromised and compromised and controlled and vetted and made sure that everything was in order to allow you to be the president. Well, we got all kinds of shit on him. He owes hundreds of people. It'll be fine. But Trump just came out of left field and said, no. I'm just going to go straight for the top. I'm good with all the rest of it. And you guys are terrible. I'm coming in here to drain the swamp. You're corrupt. You're assholes. And they're like, no, you can't. You're not allowed. Sorry, sir. This is a closed membership club. And Trump literally walked in and bought the club. And he owned the club. And everybody was pissed about that. Everybody, because you have career politicians that are angling to get a position like the presidency, and to have some asshole jump over you and take that opportunity, because a lot of these people, you know, they're geriatric before they're even eligible. You know, we can't let anybody young with their functioning brain go in there. You're so goddamn old, you're a dinosaur, and you've got a very small closing window. So somebody like Trump taking 4 years or 8 years out of your time to shine, or what you think is your time to shine, is really going to piss you off. And they also rely on just having like the shittiest options. You know, that's always what we get. We get the shittiest options because they need to be able to control them. It's not about what's good for you. It's about what they can keep a cover on. You know, we got to keep some amount of control. You can't have a president that is uncontrolled. This is unacceptable. That's why they killed JFK. You know, I mean, they still can't release the files on that. So tell me I'm wrong that doesn't implicate the federal government and the agencies and institutions, not people, because we're like several generations. We're like 2-3 generations away from the Kennedy assassination. It's good to go if it was just people, just a couple bad actors. They've got some real dirty shit on some institutions that still exist, whether they're governmental or whether they're public, private, whatever, doesn't matter. That's why they killed him, and I'm kind of shocked that they haven't killed Trump, but I think that they know that would be a mistake. I think that they know that. But it's not off the table because the playbook is sully their reputation, destroy their character. That didn't work. Now we're on the third try of trying to levy charges to criminalize someone and hopefully imprison them. And if that doesn't work, they've only got one option left on the table, and that is suiciding them. By the way, I'm not suicidal.
Tell you that you're on the wrong side of history. You know? Which is like a really interesting thing to say if you think about it. Like, you're on the wrong side of history. Meaning like it's a guarantee that history is moving in my direction, and I'm telling you how you will be judged in the future based off how you feel right now. Yeah. And they kind of have good reason to feel that way because they have been kind of moving in the direction that they want to move in. But it was just like, we just had the first black president, and now we will have the first female president. And of course, this throwback bigot, male chauvinist Donald Trump could never possibly win. Like, this is what's going to happen in history now, is Hillary Clinton is the next president.
How
and
are they
not happening?
How are they going to stop him from winning again?
They're
trying.
Oh, yeah. That's what all these indictments are right now.
The problem is it has the opposite effect on his base. It doesn't make people reluctant. It makes people more convinced that there's a conspiracy against him.
Yes.
It makes people more convinced that there's corruption that's fighting against him.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember how when we went over to the Middle East and we started blowing families up, how you were recruiting terrorists because they're like, oh, goddamn, now America has killed one of my direct members of my family. Now I'm a terrorist. What do you think is going on in the United States? Do you think that they are diminishing the base, or are they recruiting more people to the cause of the guy who is saying that the system is fucking corrupt? I mean, they're just proving his point.
I think, personally, that Trump was at his most vulnerable within the Republican primary at the very beginning. I thought for the first time to me, he seemed like he was very out of step with his own base. He's sitting there still bragging about Operation Warp Speed and how he saved hundreds of millions of lives by developing the vaccine. He was getting booed a few times at his own speeches. He just seemed kind of out of touch, and it seemed like, it seemed like the energy of his campaign wasn't 2016, which was Make America Great Again. This was like my vengeance tour. They screwed me. I lost, but I really won. I'm gonna come back and win again. And it seemed to me like that wasn't really connecting. And then, this is before DeSantis got in the race, but it was heavily speculated that he would be getting in the race. And he was like this.
The funniest thing is, I honestly believe Trump would not have so much support if they had not pulled this shit. I think that people were a little bit disillusioned with Trump. Some people, they realized that even though whatever happened, they realized that he's just very divisive. So it's going to divide the country to have a figure like Joe Biden that half the country hates, or to have a figure like Donald Trump that half the country hates. Neither one is going to be good. I think people were open to the concept of a third option right up until the moment that they saw what is perceived to be trumped up charges levied against Trump in order to prevent him from even competing. If they would have just let him be part of the Republican development, I mean, he still might have won, but it wouldn't be the fever pitch that it is right now. Like people are getting it online. They're fired up.
This guy who has a very good record on COVID, at least compared to all the other governors, just about all the other governors. And there just seemed to me like there was an opening there. There was like a vulnerability. And then they raided his house in Mar-a-Lago. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that guaranteed Trump front run. Like that guaranteed it for him. Because as soon as they did that, it was like, oh, now it's like it's shifted right back to this, like, look what they're doing to your guy. They want to not give you the chance to vote for this guy. They're going to weaponize the justice system against this guy because you like him. They're not and they're doing it to him because they want to do it to you. It kind of gave him like all this energy back. Yeah. And so there's a real dynamic to that where his numbers go up every time a new indictment comes out.
Yeah.
People aren't buying into it because it's not like, look, it's just so obvious that it's politicized. The interesting thing, there's an interesting thing about the law. Like, people have this conception of what the law is, and then there's the reality of it. Like, people have this conception of, like, there's a rule written down on a piece of paper, and that's the rule. And if you break that rule, you broke the law. And if you don't break that rule, you didn't break the law. But that's not really how it works. It's like, in the same way, like, down to the lowest level, if you get pulled over by a cop, there's times where, like, he could give you a ticket or he could let you off with a warning, Mm-hmm. And, like, sometimes it's just how that guy feels.
Right.
Maybe he knew you. Right. Maybe stuff she goes, oh shit, Joe Rogan. I'll let you off with a warning. You know what I mean? Like there could be so many different factors. Well, like just for example, okay, so James Clapper, he was the director of national intelligence. It was basically the head of the shadow government. That's the highest position in the deep state. You're the CIA answers to you. You oversee the CIA and the NSA and the FBI and all this stuff. And he lied to Congress very blatantly. Like, no question about it. He was asked point blank, is the NSA involved in any bulk data collection on American citizens? Said, no, we're not doing that. And then Ed Snowden came out and exposed that he clearly was. And he was the DNI. Like, he knew this, okay? He lied to Congress. Why isn't he arrested for it? It's like, because there's no political will to arrest that guy. He's of the deep state. He's one of the top guys. He's not getting arrested. Now, Michael Cohen lied to Congress. He got a month wrong when he was talking about a deal that he was working on for Trump. He said it happened in June, but it was really in January or something like that. He got charged with that, and because they wanted to put pressure on him to get him to flip on Donald Trump, which he did. So it's not like there are crimes that are committed all the time. There's just no political will. There's no desire.
This is absolutely true. I hope everybody's listening. This dude is the DA. Can drop any charge they want. If they don't feel they have a chance of winning it, they're not going to waste the state's resources. And likewise, if they don't want to, they can say, oh, we wouldn't be able to win this, even if it's an airtight case. The DA has discretion, and if the DA is in your pocket, you can choose who gets prosecuted and who doesn't. That's the truth.
To arrest that person. And I think the thing that's wild about this with Trump is that if you think of all the crimes that presidents have committed, the idea that this is what one of them is actually going to go down for is insane. Like, Bush instituted torture. You know what I mean? Obama murdered American citizens without charges. These guys lied us into wars. By the way, every war is illegal. The supreme law of the land is the Constitution, and it says only Congress can declare war. The last declared war was World War II. Every war since then has been an illegal war. So anyone could be arrested for this at any time. The legal defense is that they're military actions, not wars. So that thing in Vietnam? It probably smelled like a war to you, but no, not a war. Korea wasn't a war. Iraq wasn't a war. Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Somalia, Yemen. None of those were wars. It's anyone. If there was any political will, any one of these.
The people. This is why I say we got to vote everybody out, because the people make up the system, not the words. I mean, the words have to be obeyed. That's the way the system's supposed to work. But the truth is, the people have discretion on how they interpret the words. And if you got a bunch of shitbags in the positions that choose to interpret the words in the most ignorant fucking way possible, there's nothing that you and I can do except for vote them out. That's our only power. That's our only power as citizens, is the power to vote. That's it. And we're fucking squandering it.
These presidents could be arrested for any number of crimes, and yet they're not. but yet Trump didn't give back the classified information quickly enough even after they asked him. Oh, he's got to be indicted for that. Even though other presidents have done pretty much the same thing, no, he's got to be indicted for that.
What is the Georgia thing is interesting because he was going to have a press conference where he was going to reveal all of the information that proves that he was telling the truth about the Georgia election being rigged.
Yeah,
and then he didn't have the press conference.
Yes, well, this is a thing that I got to say is a kind of knock on Trump here that, this is a thing his lawyers, Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani, who just turned himself into custody today, but they would always say this after 2020. We have proof that millions of votes were stolen from Donald Trump and we'll be releasing this soon, and then it just never kind of comes. So I don't know what he thinks he's going to tell us about that. The issue with the thing in Georgia, where I will grant there's like a little bit of a gray area there. And I think that, look, there is a gray area there. It's kind of like when they impeached Trump over Ukraine. There was like a little bit of a gray area of like what exactly he did. It's just that when you look at things of all the crimes that presidents commit, the idea that you go after a president for this, it's so petty compared to these greater crimes. But like he called the Secretary of State in Georgia and was kind of like, I need you to find me these votes. But he was like, look, there's been fraud. I know there's been fraud. You got to go look for it. And the guy's like, I don't see any evidence that there's fraud here. And he's like, find it. I know there's fraud. He was putting pressure on the guy to go look. Right. But it's not as if he was telling the guy, I need you to commit fraud.
Right.
He wasn't telling him, I want you to flip votes or I want you to manipulate something. He's like, I want you to go find where the fraud is.
Right.
So you'd almost have to prove that he didn't really believe that.
Right.
In order to prove, because if there was really fraud, he has every right to tell the guy to go find it.
Right.
So now they're arguing that he didn't, and in the indictment they argue that he knew it, and he was he knew that there was no fraud, but was still trying to get the guy to go find it. And the case that they're using to argue that is that he had advisors around him who told him that the election was legit. The problem with that is that doesn't prove at all that Trump believed those guys. Just because they...
Statistically, when you have 200 million people voting, you're going to have some level of fraud. So to say that there's no fraud is just as disingenuous as saying that the whole fucking election was fraudulent.
Told him that.
Right.
If there's one thing I'm fairly confident in, I believe Donald Trump believes he won the election in 2020.
But if you think everything went perfect, nothing ever goes perfect, ever. We know that. That's very provable. I think everybody can speak to their lived experience about whether they think that things go perfectly in reality. Okay, use your brains. Great talking to you guys. Thanks for all your contributions to this. I look forward to talking to you again.